Where does Allah tell you which are the deviant, which are the ambiguous verses and which are the unambiguous verses?
So those verses are related to the unseen.
Where does Allah say that? I accept your scholars say that. I'm not disputing your scholars say that. I accept Muslim scholars say those that are talking about the unseen. But where does Allah make this distinction? How are we doing, Uncle Nazzam? You okay?
Good to see you, yeah.
Don't block the shot. Don't block the shot.
Don't block the shot.
Okay.
Sorry. Can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure, maybe after I'm done, I'll finish this.
How long do you think you'll be? I mean,
I guess it depends on what questions there are.
it's about Islamic Tawheed. Essentially, the question is,
Hi, how are you?
can you hear us? Can you hear the uncle? Okay, apparently the uncle is picking up both, and you've got your own microphone. So
I don't think I'm that old to be your uncle, but if you want to call me uncle,
you got more grey hairs than me, so I'm just trying to be polite. So, can you worship the face of Allah?
the face of Allah.
Yeah.
I've never heard this before.
But it's a simple question. Can you worship the face of Allah? Or can you worship the hands of Allah? Or can you worship the shin of Allah?
Yeah, so there's no kind of face of God, or there's no hands of God. But what you find that both the Bible and the Quran, in the Semitic languages, they use expressions in order to either make some kind of emphasis on some point or some idiom that people at the time would have been familiar or known. So like when the Bible refers to God as a rock, or the Lord is my shepherd, it doesn't mean physically God is a rock.
Agreed.
But it's an expression.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Quran also uses similar type languages for God.
Yeah.
But it's not meant to be taken literally.
So
at least in mainstream.
So you believe the Salafis are wrong when they assert that Allah does have a face and He does have a shin?
I'm not that much familiar with the Salafi creed, but at least in terms of the mainstream Orthodox
Ash'ari
and Maturidi.
Yeah, okay.
They wouldn't take this.
So you see these descriptions as metaphors?
Yeah.
Okay. So when
You can check any tafsir, so like Tafsir Jalain, for example, they would interpret this as being metaphors.
What's the prophetic justification for interpreting them as metaphors?
So one is Surah 3, verse number 7.
Can we pull that out?
When it speaks about this, you probably already know the verse beforehand. It speaks about there's two types of verses in the Quran.
Sorry, 1 second. Surah 4?
Sorry, it's chapter 3, verse 7.
Chapter 3, verse 7. Right, let's get to it. Bear with us. It's a bit windy. Chapter 3. Oh gosh.
By the way, do you plan to interview Trent Horn on your podcast?
Oh, I'd love to.
He'll be a good guest to have on.
Yeah.
Recently, I've been listening to him.
So here's what it says. So it is He who has sent down to you the book. In it are verses that are entirely clear. They are the foundations of the book. And no, sorry, there's no and yet. Hold on. Al-Faharid and Hudud. Laws for the oh, sorry, that's also.
These are in brackets.
Yeah. I'm just trying to eliminate the black brackets.
It doesn't help,
There's so many brackets.
Yeah,
there's even brackets within brackets.
Yeah.
You know, verses that are entirely clear. They are the foundations of the book, and others not entirely clear. So as for those in whose hearts there is a deviation, they follow that which is not entirely clear thereof. No, that's a bracket as well. And seeking for its hidden meaning, but none knows its hidden meaning save Allah. That one.
Yeah.
So why does that justify the idea that the hand of Allah is not a real hand?
Usually this verse is used to interpret verses related to the unseen, like the afterlife or God or angels. So those verses are seen as being ambiguous or mutashabihah.
Right.
So those meanings are, the exact meaning is left to God, like God alone knows best.
Right.
But in order to explain these expressions just to the lay or average person, the traditional approach has been to explain them like as metaphorical expressions or idioms.
Okay.
And this is something that's not new.
So, no, of course not. Would you agree, therefore, that I am legitimate in saying that the actual interpretations given to the unambiguous verses is entirely man-made, but you could argue justified based upon the precedent of the Quran. It's man-made.
I don't have. It's humans' understanding of God's word.
Right.
Attempt to understand God's word.
So
all interpretation is man-made.
Does the Quran claim to be clear guidance?
It claims that there's verses that are clear, and these are the foundation of the book. And then there's other verses which are unclear, and God alone knows the precise meaning of these.
Does the Quran claim to be clear expositor of all things?
Yeah, I know the verse that you're referring to, but I have to look at their commentaries.
Yeah, because
you're not asking the right person.
Fair enough, because the Quran claims that it is clearly it's in Surah 12 verse 111. So I don't know if you want to pull it up in the Arabic. So it says, if I've got the right place. Indeed, in their stories there is a lesson for men of understanding, is not forged statement, but a confirmation of which were before it, and the brackets, honestly, and a detailed explanation of everything, and a guide and a mercy for the people who believe. So if it's a clear explanation of everything, which is what the Quran Arabic says, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, what if the Quran is explaining something? Why do you need to invent something else?
I'm interpreting this like in the light of chapter 3, verse number 7,
Yeah.
which says that there are verses in the Quran that are clear, and
Yeah.
then there's other verses which are open to its interpretation,
Yeah.
ambiguous.
Yeah.
But in terms of the true meaning, God knows those meanings, which is why when people have explained those verses about, the hand of God or the face of God,
Yeah.
scholars end by saying God alone knows best.
Yeah. So the understanding of the hands and the Allah, we've agreed, is something that men have made up in sincerity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that there is no.
Doesn't necessarily. We also agree that it's not necessarily wrong. It could be right.
It could be right, but it could also be wrong, couldn't it? And do you not agree
But
that,
to insist that this particular interpretation is right and the other one is wrong,
like the Salafi do?
It seems like the Quran condemns it in that same verse in chapter 3, verse 7.
Yeah.
It says that those that try to seek the means.
Can you just confirm that in the Arabic the Quran claims that to be a detailed explanation of everything? That those are the words of the Quran.
So, kulli shay means everything.
Yeah.
Kul means every, and shay means thing.
Yeah.
So it's everything, and a guidance and a mercy to a nation of believers.
Right. So it is claiming to be an explanation of everything.
Yes.
Right. So it would be fair to say it's an explanation of everything that the Quran touches upon, rather than say it's an explanation of Einstein's physics or relativity or the particular events in history that happened.
I think that's a reasonable interpretation.
Yeah. I don't want to be unfair to the Quran, because that would be to strawman Islam, and I don't want to be like the Dawah team who strawman Christianity. So, if the Quran is saying that it is a perfect explanation of everything, therefore of what the Quran touches upon, we must surely expect the Quran to explain to us what the hand, the shin, the face of Allah is. Are you able to offer a Quranic explanation to those things, rather than relying on the interpretation of a scholar?
Yeah, so verse number 3, chapter 3, verse number 7,
Yeah.
Says, but those who are, when it says that the verses in the book are clear, and then there's verses that are ambiguous,
Yeah.
or unspecific, as for those in whose hearts are deviation,
Yeah.
they follow the unspecific verses in order to create like disunity or disharmony.
So to be clear,
so God left it in this way.
So Allah is deliberately doing this to lead those who have deviation in their heart into deviancy.
Well, it doesn't say that.
Wait, 1 second. What does it say?
It's descriptive rather than descriptive.
It says, and
So
others
it's
not.
just describing
It says,
certain
so as for those whose hearts there is a deviation, and then we've got to skip the brackets, and seeking for its hidden meaning, but none knows its hidden meaning save Allah, and those who are firmly grounded in knowledge say, we believe in it, the whole of it. Right, but the thing is, if they are firm in knowledge, they are firm in what Allah has revealed, right?
They believe in the Quran as all of it being from God.
So where does Allah tell you which are the deviant, which are the ambiguous verses, and which are the unambiguous verses?
So those verses that are related to the unseen.
Where does Allah say that? I accept your scholars say that. I'm not disputing your scholars say that. I accept Muslim scholars say those that are talking about the unseen. But where does Allah make this distinction?
So like in the beginning of the second chapter,
Let's go to it.
it speaks about the characteristics of the believers.
Do you want? Can we pull it up? What chapter and verse, please?
Chapter 2, verse number 3.
Chapter 2, verse number 3. Bear with us 1 second.
And forward.
Right. Bear with us.
It describes the characteristics of the believers as opposed to the characteristics of those people who have a deviation in their heart.
Right. Let's look at it. Because what I'm looking for is where Allah creates a distinction between the seen and the unseen. Okay, so in, what is it? Surah 2, verse 3, yeah?
Yeah, and forward.
Who believe in the Ghaib and perform al-salat and spend out of what we have provided. Spend on themselves, their parents, their children, their wives, and also give charity to the poor and also in Allah's cause. Sorry, maybe I've got the wrong place. Surah 2, Ayah 3.
Yes, Al-Ghaib means the unseen, so it's given the description of the believers who believe in the unseen.
Yeah, but they believe in the unseen, but where...
Those ones that are firmly rooted in knowledge.
Great, but that, I agree. I'm not even arguing about it. I agree Allah says that the characteristics of the believers is that they believe in the unseen. But where does it qualify that which is the unseen to that which is the ambiguous?
Through the descriptions of the believers, in my understanding.
But where?
So in chapter 2, verse number 3, when it's describing the believers.
Yeah, it's describing
that they believe in the unseen.
Great,
as opposed to those people.
Where does it categorize? Where does it put in the category of ambiguous the unseen? Because if the Quran is claiming, as it does in the verse that I showed you, that it is an explanation of everything, and we've got to be fair to the Quran and limit that to an explanation of everything that the Quran touches upon, then that means that we should expect the Quran either to lay out for us this category that the unseen is the ambiguous verses, or verses about the unseen are the ambiguous ones, because all we've got is a description that there are some verses that are unambiguous and some verses that are ambiguous, but no clarity from the Quran at least about which these are.
From the perspective, like I said, it describes the believers as opposed to those people that want to.
Your brother wants to give you a verse. Do you want to take a minute to read that and see if it answers my question? Does it address the question?
This is about.
I didn't.
What does it say?
It's about the covenant of the children of Israel.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was looking for something else, but your phone didn't give me the app is different.
Okay. So my point to you is, right, like bearing in mind that the Quran tells me to consider this book. So I'm considering it. And what I see is one part of the Quran says that there's ambiguous verses and unambiguous verses. And then another part of the Quran that says that it is the perfect explanation of everything.
The word perfect, you're adding that yourself now.
Oh, sorry, maybe I did, sorry. A complete explanation of everything. We can always go back and recheck
Even
it.
the word complete as well.
Okay, let's have a look at what the verse said again. It was 12:111, wasn't it? So what it said was, let's go to it. Sorry, you're right. I don't want to put words into what the Quran says. I want to let the Quran speak for itself. That's what I'm inviting you to do. Let the Quran speak for itself. It says, indeed in their stories there is a lesson for men of understanding, is not a forged statement but a confirmation which were before it, and other scripture, and a detailed, a detailed explanation of everything.
Yeah, so the Quran itself is telling you that it includes verses that are clear as well as ambiguous verses that are open to
So
interpretation.
where does the Quran identify what are the ambiguous verses and what are the clear verses? Because the Salafi, no, you're coming from, I guess, an Ash'ari position or something similar. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But the Salafi would say, well, the Quran is clear. Allah has hands, Allah has a face, Allah has a shin. And therefore, it's clear we can neither deny it nor can we say it's like anything in creation. That's what the Salafi position would be. Agreed? Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. You're saying that they're wrong.
I don't know the exact Salafi position, but
This is, I gave you the exact, I gave you the exact Salafi position. So the Salafi and the Ash'ari argue about what's clear and unclear about the Quran. So you've surely got to go to the Quran to address that argument.
When they Salafi, they are arguing about what is clear, what is not clear.
I'm sorry?
Where you get this from? Salafi, they arguing about what is clear, what is not clear.
So the Salafi would argue.
No, where you get it from?
So the Salafi would argue.
Where you get it from?
Okay, if you're just going to be rude, I'll just go back to talking to him. Okay?
Yeah, no,
So-
mean nothing.
I was just asking, do you have like a reference where you could read about the Salafi belief about this?
Yeah. I've watched many a video put up by Salafis on YouTube where they expound their doctrine inside the mosque as they're teaching.
Did they give any reference?
that your
to what-
Oh yeah, they did lots, but I can't remember them all.
Maybe
you know,
another time.
yeah, maybe another time. But they seem pretty convinced that when the Quran says Allah has a face, He really does have a face. You know? No, I'm talking to you because he's just going to be rude. If I try to talk to him, he'll interrupt me.
But to me, that sounds like some kind of pagan or.
Sorry?
That sounds like adultery to me.
Idolatry. So you-
an image of God. It even seems to contradict the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's lots of problems with the Salafi position.
Because even you yourself accept that there's certain verses in the Bible that speak about God that you don't take literally.
Yes, absolutely.
Physically.
We would adopt a very similar position to the Ash'ari. But our concept of revelation is different from the Islamic concept of revelation. You know that.
The Bible has different genres of revelation.
Exactly. So we've got different genres of revelation, but our understanding of revelation is that the Holy Spirit is guiding the prophets and the apostles to teach us, and they teach us in men's words. But the Quran is, as you believe, the starting point of the religion. I'm not misrepresenting Islam, am I? That's fair, isn't it? Yeah. So when the Quran states that it is a clear explanation of everything. Now, we obviously limit everything to everything that the Quran talks about, because to do otherwise would be to strawman the Quran. I mean, I don't want to do that. But then you quite rightly point out that the Quran also says there's ambiguous verses and unambiguous verses. So that means that when the Salafi and the Ash'ari are disputing about whether the Salafi are guilty of idolatry for saying that Allah has a face, that you have to go to the Quran to show that the verses about the unseen are the ambiguous verses. Can you show that?
Yeah, I feel satisfied with my answer. It may not be satisfied to other people, but at least to me, I'm satisfied. Chapter 2, verse 3 and forward, this gives a description of the believers, and for me, this through the description of the believers describes as to what verses we may understand as being ambiguous. Those verses related to the unseen or related to revelation or from the past or the unseen, more specifically about God, the day of judgment, the hereafter.
Yeah. Would it be fair to say, look, we can always move. We can always move to a quieter place.
You know what? We can agree to disagree. It's fine.
But I think this is.
I'm fine with that.
That's fine. I'm sure we will end up disagreeing. Let's face it. Does a conversation at Speaker's Corner end in any other way? So let's look at this.
And also, I feel like we're repeating.
But no, I'm going to analyse your argument now, because you've staked your claim on this verse. But I want to demonstrate to you, Uncle, that you're following a circular logic, and I want to show that to you. So you're saying that this verse is the verse that identifies the ambiguous and the unambiguous. But here's actually what the verse says: who believe. So this is a description of Muslims.
I'm saying, like, the believers, those that believe in the unseen, like through them.
Yeah.
I come to understand about this relates to the unseen, the hereafter.
Yep. So here's what the verse describes. Bear in mind, the verse is describing Muslim believers. It's saying, who believe in the unseen and perform salat, who spend out of what we have provided for them, spend on themselves, their parents, their children, their wives, and also give to charity to the poor, and also in Allah's cause, jihad. Now, well, actually, that all I've just read there is brackets. All it actually says, this is actually the verse. The brackets are annoying. Let's
get another translation.
Yeah. Who believe in the unseen and perform salat and spend of what we have provided for them. That's it. That's all the verse says. There is nothing in that verse that tells you that verses about Allah's face are unambiguous verses.
From the unseen, when it says al-ghayb.
So there's your circular logic.
So God is unseen, the hereafter.
And this is your circular logic, because you're saying that because your scholars tell you to say that.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that based on my limited understanding. I'll go back and see what the commentaries have done.
Right, so you're appealing to the scholars to tell you what the Quran says. And the Quran, therefore, you're just going to have to ignore the interrupters. I get this. Anyone I speak to, I get this kind of thing.
There is a verse in the Quran that also says, "Laysa kamithlihi shay." There's nothing comparable to God.
Yeah.
There's nothing like Him.
Yeah.
So even this can be used to interpret the other verses that speak about face.
And that's exactly what the Salafi do. They say that the hand is not like anything you can think of as a hand. But you're saying that the hand is not really a hand. You're saying that the hand is a metaphor for something else, like one of Allah's activities.
That explanation,
which is a much more Christian way. That's much like a Christian would do it. You're right to point that out. We would do that.
And also Orthodox Jews as well. Moses Maimonides as well.
Yeah.
He interpreted them.
So Christians, Jews, and Muslims, or Ash'ari Muslims, are much closer than Salafi Muslims. I agree. But the point that I'm getting to you is that you are unable to show me the justification from the Quran of which verses are ambiguous and unambiguous based on the Quran. But the Quran claims to be a clear explanation.
What are you talking about verses?
Again, you're rude, so I'm not talking to you.
Finish the verse.
Sorry, go on, you were saying.
Finish the verse. Finish the verse. The answer is in the verse.
Okay.
Finish the verse.
So what I propose to you, this is this, Uncle Nazzam. If your Quran has an internal contradiction, should it be believed? Right.
Because in chapter 4, verse 82, says that had this book been from anyone other than God, then surely they would find in it many contradictions.
Exactly. So here I am. I'm commanded by Allah to consider the Quran, and Allah says to me, if I can find a contradiction in this Quran, I shouldn't believe it. And you agree. I am pointing out to you a contradiction in your Quran.
I don't see
Reconcile the contradiction.
I'm happy with that.
But your explanation, and
in your book and your head.
no, in your explanation, only appeals to a verse that doesn't talk about the subject.
The subject is to do with the unseen.
No, the subject, no.
Unseen is something.
You've misunderstood my argument, Uncle. My argument is not about whether the Quran talks about the unseen. Of course the Quran talks about the unseen. My argument is the Quran, despite claiming to be clear explanation of everything that we rationally limit to the Quran's statements, doesn't explain what is the ambiguous and the unambiguous. It gives you no Quranic justification.
In the end of the verse, there is a
And so this is a contradiction.
Just read the end of the verse.
As a contradiction because the verse itself
And he
tells
talk
you.
about like you, the people who they have disease in their heart, they follow in. Read full verse.
Yeah, follow your brother's example.
In chapter 3, verse 7.
Chapter 3, verse 7.
Verse 7.
Count it in your. Yeah, this is 3. This is 3.
3 verse 7, go on. Yep. Which bit do you want me to draw out?
For some reason I can't.
It's okay. I've got it here and we've got the Arabic there, so you could just read it from my
I
Quran.
just don't like the translation.
That's
because
fine.
of the brackets.
I'll hold it if that's all right. You can read it in the Arabic.
Okay. He is who sent down to you the book. In it are verses which are established or clear. These form the mother of the book, and other verses are mutashabihat or ambiguous. As for those in hearts, there is, I think this word means disease.
Yeah.
They
Or is-
follow the unclear or the ambiguous verses.
Yeah.
And this one I don't know.
It's okay. Arabic ain't your first language. You've been Arabized.
No, I'm just learning. So
Yeah.
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 As for those
Hearts
in
is a
heart, there's
deviation.
They follow that which is not entirely clear. Therefore,
Seeking
seeking to
Seeking
cause,
for its hidden. Yeah.
fitna,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah. I know what fitna is.
and seeking for its hidden meaning. But none knows its hidden meaning except God.
Right,
So
yep.
when the Quran says that it's an explanation for everything, here the verse is telling you that with regards to the ambiguous verses,
Yep.
no one knows its hidden meaning except God.
But here's my
So the Quran
criticism.
itself
No, I get you. I fully accept that you have.
knows the meaning of the
I fully accept that you have shown me a verse of the Quran that gives you two categories: ambiguous and unambiguous. I get it. I'm fully on board with you. Completely agree with you. The Quran gives you two categories: ambiguous and unambiguous. But the Quran doesn't tell you which ones are ambiguous and which ones are unambiguous. Does it?
For me, the audience would know which ones are ambiguous and which ones are clear.
So why do Salafi and Ash'ari disagree? If it's obvious, why do Salafi and Ash'ari
They
disagree?
agree that these verses are ambiguous, but to do with the explanation or the interpretation of these particular verses.
Right.
The disagreement isn't whether these verses are mutashabihat or not.
Yeah.
So the disagreement is over the interpretation.
Yeah.
And if you insist one meaning and not the other, then that itself you can be fall into what the Quran seems to be condemning those people that just seek to create hostility by seeking after the unclear verses.
And again, I will accept your explanation that Salafi, I'll accept your explanation again that Salafi and Ash'ari and the other schools of thought, they all agree about which are the ambiguous verses and the unambiguous verses. I'll accept that. But do they accept that on the basis of the Quran alone, or do they accept that on the statement of the scholars?
It's assumed, like from reading the Quran, it's assumed that which verses are clear, unclear.
Assumed by who?
The reader of the Quran or the audience.
Right. So that means that Islamic deen is being invented by men.
No, I mean God's also giving us the intellect, and God also wants us to use our brains.
Can intellects be wrong?
Yeah, people can be wrong. Yeah.
Can entire societies come to the wrong conclusion?
Yeah, of course.
Does that mean it's possible that the Ummah can come to the wrong conclusion?
It's possible. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
That's why there's no blind belief or blind faith when it comes to creed, matters of creed.
but isn't this exactly why Muslims say that, you know, men can be wrong, so therefore we've got to appeal to revelation? Right. So I'm asking you to stop appealing to your scholars and appeal to your revelation. I accept you've demonstrated two categories exist in the Quran, but where does the Quran tell you which ones are the ambiguous and which ones are the unambiguous?
Those verses that are related to the unseen.
Where does it say that?
Like people would already know, like it's assumed.
So there you go. It's
Like
assumed by the people reading the book,
Yeah.
and that's my point. That's not from revelation.
But God is.
Have you got a hadith maybe?
Like God is not speaking to us like in a vacuum.
Yeah.
Like the Quran comes like when people already, use certain things already, and the Quran addresses in that context.
Yeah. Muslims believe in the hadiths.
Yeah.
Yep. I've asked you to show me where the Quran defines for you what's ambiguous and unambiguous, and your reply has been consistently, well, it's what people assumed. But you acknowledge, as I not acknowledge, that people can be wrong, entire communities can be wrong, and so there is no basis to believe that assumption.
Can also be right.
Yes, but there's no basis for that assumption. So if you can't, if you can't, Uncle Nazzam, if you can't show me, don't compliment his rudeness.
I have to think about that.
Okay.
But with hadiths, I don't take too much interest myself. And as you know, there's like hundreds of thousands of hadiths. But I'm just more interested in the Quran.
Okay. Would you accept that as someone who is asked? Yeah, do you want to
conclude?
Yeah, we've come to a conclusion. So here's my conclusion. You have failed, for now, to demonstrate to me where the categories are defined. The categories are given, but they are not defined. And you haven't shown me any verse in the Quran that defines that the ambiguous verses are connected to the unseen. The Quran says that you should believe in the unseen. The Quran says that some verses are ambiguous and some verses are unambiguous. But the Quran doesn't say what defines an ambiguous verse and what defines an unambiguous verse. For that, you go to the scholars. And this is the point about Islam being invented.
I personally wasn't going to the scholars, I was just from offhand, like just thinking of the answer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I'll go back and think about.
Okay.
And see what
Maybe come back
say,
next
what
week with a proof
say.
text.
Yeah, in the future, yeah.
All right, I look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Uncle Nas. Now, I know you've got a Bible.
On my phone, that's it.
Have you not got like a gospel or anything tangible in your hand?
Yeah, in my house, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna give me one.
I want to give you a gift, and you're more than welcome to question me about Christianity. Then, not that one. That's for women. I want. It's just a devotional book.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Is it mine?
It's yours. Oh, I'm not sure who the author is.
Okay.
It's like we Christians, we use these devotional books as it's an aspect of our spirituality that we read a verse and we reflect upon how it changes our being and how we should act and behave in the world.
I'll take that into consideration.
All right. God bless you. Take care. Would you like to ask me some questions about Christianity? Would you like to ask me some questions about Christianity?
No, you ask
Come
about
before when you come. When I'm not cameraman, then come when we talk.
Okay. Would you worship? Okay. Would you worship the face of Allah?
Yes, I worship the face of Allah.
You worship the face of Allah. Would you worship the hand of Allah?
I worship everything what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told me to worship.
Okay. Does that mean worship Him?
I worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes.
Brilliant. So is Allah's words a part of Allah?
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, the word is eternal.
Do you worship His word?
I don't worship the Quran.
You don't worship the Quran?
Yes.
So you worship some parts of Allah but not other parts of Allah?
I worship the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what you say, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we not worship the Quran.
Okay. So is the Quran the word of Allah?
Yes, it's the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
It is the word of
It is
Allah.
transcribed to writing what we have, but it's not the word.
So are these words worthy of worship?
We not worship the Quran,
So you don't worship the words of Allah?
but they worship the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
So
We not worship.
so are these not the words of
The
Allah?
Quran has no conscience.
So this is not the words of
Quran has
Allah?
no conscience.
So
This
you
is the word of Allah subhanahu
Does the
wa ta'ala.
face of Allah have a consciousness?
Does the face of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you didn't told me, then I don't know.
Okay. So you're not sure
No,
if the face of Allah has a
Listen,
consciousness?
listen. Do you say, who have, Jesus he said, who have seen me have seen the Father, yeah?
Yes, we believe that.
Huh?
Yes, we believe that.
Jesus has a beard, the Father has a beard?
Sorry?
Jesus has a beard, the Father has a beard.
Oh, okay. I see. No, when we say no,
Jesus
you've
has
asked a
beard.
question. You've
No,
asked a
answer
question.
straight away. I
I'm
don't
going
like-
to.
I
I'm
don't
going.
like-
No,
I don't
no.
like- I don't
You can
like
always
your way
walk
to
away.
play with the other.
I
don't
yeah,
like
yeah.
that one.
Sadly, this is.
Straight.
Sadly, you
Say
just
to
can't
me,
have
say
a. You
to
just
me,
can't have a
say
decent
to me,
conversation
yes,
with this guy.
Yes, no.
This, no,
Easy.
no. God the Father does not have a beard.
God the Father. Then how you say, who have seen me have seen the Father?
Great question.
Yes.
Now let me answer it.
Yes.
Right. So when Jesus said, "He who has seen me has seen the Father,"
Yes.
insofar as the divine personality can be captured in human form, it is captured in the person of Jesus Christ. So he who has seen Jesus Christ has seen the very person of God. When Jesus Christ speaks, it is the words of the Father. When Jesus Christ acts, it is the acts of the Father. It is the heart of the Father.
Just the work of the Father. When Jesus he said to in Matthew, when he said to that woman, it's not good to give the bread to give it to the dogs.
Yep.
In that moment, he was presenting God.
Where Jesus is God incarnate, that's what we believe.
I know what you believe, but in that moment when he said, is that the Father talking?
Those are those.
were those
Yeah,
from
these.
the
This
Father.
is the very personable nature of the
Is
Father.
the Father called that woman dog?
Yes, the Father calls that woman a dog.
I don't believe it.
Now let me, because he's going to walk away. So let me just explain that. So let me just explain that. Let me just explain that. So the words. Notice he got off, and this, guys, is what you've got to see and recognize: is that when you push upon Islam, the Muslims will try to get off the topic as quickly as possible, because their religion is in contradiction. Their religion is undefensible to a rational mind. So when Christ says it is not good to give the food of the children to the dogs, the word that he uses in the Greek is like a puppy. It's not an insulting language. It's a diminutive language. It's the same in Spanish, and JC behind the camera will be able to verify this, that they'll say things like chiquita, which means little girl, not chica, just chiquita. Yeah, it's or perro, they'd go is it periquita? How would they call it?
Puppies we call it cachorros.
Cachorros.
Perros.
Yeah, perros and cachorros, two different words. So Christ used the equivalent of the word puppy. This is why the woman didn't feel insulted. She felt emboldened to continue to press for a response to her prayer request. And who was she praying to? Who was she supplicating? Jesus. She was saying, Jesus, answer my prayer. Jesus, heal. So the Muslims have to answer this irreconcilable contradiction. Their God is made up of parts. And if they deny the parts of God, then they make the Quran into nothing and meaninglessness. Which it is, a self-contradicting book. If they assert that God does have parts, they accept that God is a composite, a differentiated unity. And therefore they have no argument against the Trinity.
Exactly.